Tonight is going to be a little bit different. I want to run over a couple housekeeping items with you here as we get into this. This is an information meeting, not a standard business meeting. According to our bylaws, we are supposed to have a regular business meeting the fourth Wednesday of this month, but Montgomery County will not allow us to do that right now, so there is no quorum present for tonight. So I want to officially, for the record, recognize there is no quorum. And so we are, in anticipation of that, we are making tonight an information meeting. As soon as we're able to get back together as a church family, we will have a special business meeting with some votes and so on and so forth. There is a lot to cover tonight. We have a whole lot to go over, so I need to ask your patience. If you want to go get a drink of water or something like that, whatever, and make yourself comfortable, please do that. But we have a lot of material to cover tonight, so please be patient with us. Some people had asked that we do this meeting by Zoom. That is not really possible. There are some security issues with Zoom when you start publicizing the meeting ID number and the password and put it out there like that. Zoom is really best for small group meetings, closed meetings that can be where we can maintain security. So for a meeting like this that's church-wide, it is best to do it this way. And this way also, any member that's not able to watch it tonight for whatever reason will be able to catch the replay. And if you're not a member of OBC and you just want to enjoy tonight and just be bored and maybe get help on sleep, we want to welcome you here tonight. So I want to say a request of the deacons and members: if you know of someone who is unable to watch this tonight, doesn't have internet access or whatnot, we will be making these slides available. Just let us know and we can send these slides to them. But you have to let us know that so we can help. We appreciate that very much. And we will have, again, a normal business meeting. I say normal in quotation marks, and because this 2020 is not exactly a normal year. But we will have that as soon as we are able. Tonight, this is our agenda for tonight. Welcome. I've done that. Welcome. And we're going to have our treasurer's report in just a moment. And then I'll give a pastor's report. Then we have a deacon report. And then a trustee report. And then we have an overview of the COVID-19 situation from Daniel. And that has been pre-recorded, so we will play that shortly. And then I will go over the plans for campus reopening, such as they are at this time. And then we will open it up for questions and comments. If you are watching this on our website, you will have to switch over to our YouTube channel directly so that you can type comments in the comment area. At the end of the meeting, we will be responding to the comments. But hold your questions as best you can until then, and we will do our best to respond at that point, and then we will close in a word of prayer. So a lot to cover. We will try to go as quickly as we can, but as you can see, we have a lot to cover tonight. So with that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to our treasurer, and I appreciate the hard work that she's doing. So, Dee, it's all yours.
Thank you, Pastor. Hi, church. I just want to tell you that I love you and I miss you and I pray for you every day. I hope you're all doing well. I put a little bit of the treasurer's report. I did a little different this time because I'm sure most of you are mainly interested in are we paying bills? Are we collecting enough money? And first, I want to let you know that I really appreciate, and so does Pastor and the whole leadership, of the push pay payments, the checks that are being mailed, and I know some people are just coming by and dropping it in the mailbox. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts that we're able to continue ministry here at OBC. As you can see on the sheet here, I did it by months just because, so you can see how things are moving along. If you look, our total income has been $119,231. That is through April 30th. And I broke it down by month. We are averaging about $30,000 a month in income, which is really good. Our expenses, as you can see, are about $130,659. And breaking it out, you'll see that March and April are a little higher than normal, and there's a couple reasons for that. One of them is the insurance bill that I just paid, which is around $5,500. And because when we moved Kristen over to the social media outreach job, then they bought new equipment for her, setting her up a new laptop, so all of that is in there. And they're also updating and doing a lot of things here at the church with lighting, computers and things like that, so that we can get the live streaming done and do it as best as possible so that everybody can see. So less our expenditures, we are down by $11,428. And if you look at the budget requirements for 17 weeks, our budget requirements are $130. So if we've collected $119, we are again down by $11,629. But we're good. We're good. Everything is fine and everything is paid. If you have any questions, please email Pastor Kyle at youthpastor@olneybaptistchurch.com, or you can call him and bug him because he's bugging me. But anyway, that's all I have for tonight, and I hope everybody continues to do well.
Thank you, Dee, and thanks for a reminder. I forgot to say, if you're unable for whatever reason to type a question in the chat, just email Pastor Kyle at youthpastor@olneybaptistchurch.com. He is monitoring his account, and we can try to answer your question in real time. So, anyway, moving on, Pastor's Report. First of all, what a year it's been. I don't think any of us anticipated this. I'm part of a pastor group, and one of the pastors there jokingly asked, who did you have in seminary for Global Pandemic 101? You know, so this is a unanticipated situation, but I want to thank everyone for hanging in there. As Dee mentioned, I want to thank you for your faithful giving. I want to thank you for just your participation online. I just want to thank you for looking in on each other. Just thank you for still being the church. You know, the church is not shut down. The church building is closed right now, but the church is still the church. And I want to thank you for still being the church. And I want to thank especially our staff and volunteers who have really stepped up and gone above and beyond during this time. And if I start naming names, I feel like I'll leave people out. But there have been several volunteers, key volunteers in different areas. You just heard from one, but that have really stepped up and gone above and beyond and have done a lot to just keep us going. And I really appreciate them very much. We are postponing, obviously, our Building Faith and Families campaign. And I can't give you a date as to when we're going to have that. You know, right now our whole focus is just, getting through this COVID-19 situation. And then once we're able to get back together, just to kind of see what that new normal is going to be then and just to kind of see where we are. So we'll make a decision together as a church family when we can about when that's going to be. But obviously for right now, we're postponing that. The building campaign and all of that's just suspended at this time. When we're able, we will, as I said earlier, have a more normal business meeting in person to kind of cover some of these issues. Some of you asked about doing a business meeting online. Unfortunately, our bylaws do not allow for that, and our bylaws say that business meetings have to be conducted by Robert's Rules, and Robert's Rules makes it clear that business meetings should not be online unless provided for by the bylaws and of your organization and so on and so forth. So we will have to probably amend the bylaws and adjust the bylaws at some point on that, but then hopefully won't be going through a global pandemic again anytime in our lifetime. So anyway, so we will just have to wait until we can get back together in person for a more normal business meeting. All right, at this time I want to turn over to Ron Barnett for our deacon report.
On the clicker. Thank you, Pastor. Good evening, church. Normally, I would just submit this and would tell everybody to read it later, but since we're in the situation we are, I'm going to go ahead and read through this, so bear with me. I have to say that I had to ponder over how to write the deacon's report for this evening. Normally, we would not, it wouldn't be a great deal, a large deal rather, and to go over everything. We're a blessed congregation, and most of our members are healthy and doing well. As any church, we have our challenges. A few members need more care than most, and some may need financial or spiritual assistance. But for the most part, our members are good, in good spirits, and easily cared for. Again, this year began like any other. And then everything changed. We had the pandemic. Even the way we try to meet our family needs has changed. Since we had some changes in our deacons board this year, families were reassigned. Some may have kept their deacon for the last year, and others have not. There was much prayer and discussion as we addressed this. I know of a few people who are concerned as far as not knowing who their deacon was, and I apologize for this, for those concerned. Unfortunately, the terms of some of our deacons had ended, and we didn't have enough come back on to be able to cover all the families, so we had to make sure that when we distributed the families between the deacons, it was done equally, and we didn't overwhelm anyone. After a number of discussions with the pastor, and I should be clicking this thing. Okay. Anyway, after a number of discussions with the pastor and a lot of prayer, a decision was made to ask Rick Irving to consider rejoining the deacons. Both pastor and I spoke to Rick, and he graciously accepted this role. Now, since we are unable to have an actual meeting to vote Rick into the Board of Deacons, he was brought on as a yoke fellow. However, with his experience as being a deacon previously, he will actually be placed in an acting role as a deacon. Once we are able to vote and have an actual meeting, then we'll bring everybody back in and we'll actually vote him in completely. But until that time, he has been assigned families, so he is acting as a deacon as of now. By now, all deacons should have been in contact with their families, letting them know who their deacon is. I know there are a few families that do not have the correct information. And here, real quick, there are some families that we don't have either the correct emails or phone numbers for. If you are not receiving any contact, and I know I have a couple of families in my group that I don't have the information for. If you're not receiving emails or cards or some type of a contact from your deacon, please let either myself, pastor, or either leave a message here at the office or email the pastors or the info@olneybaptistchurch.com. Anyways, you can go ahead and send something in. Let us know what your contact information is. This way we can get in contact with you and continue to let let everybody know what's going on. It is a very difficult time right now, and because of that, there's only a certain number of ways that we actually have to be able to go ahead and contact everybody. So we'd appreciate that greatly. For now, most contacts will be either done by email or cards or phone calls. One thing to bear in mind, please remember, we're all in this together. It's not just the deacons caring for families, it's all of our families caring for each other. So please reach out to each other. Phone call, card, email, whatever. We are all in this together, and it really does help us to get through this as we move forward. It helps as far as deacon family care groups. It helps us, not just the deacons, but all the families as well. It keeps everybody in touch, and it's a very much of a blessing when you call somebody to say, hey, how you doing? So we'd appreciate that as well. The only other thing that I have this evening to go through is on the benevolence. We'd still have a benevolence fund. We have not stopped that. That is in existence. So far, I have not really heard much from anybody about assistance needed. We know there are families that are probably going through quite a bit right now. So if anybody knows, or if you yourself need some type of an assistance, please let us know. We're here for you. The church loves you. We love you. And we want to make sure that we are all working together to get everybody through this. Because as I said, we're all in this together. We don't know exactly when all the quarantines are going to be lifted and when we'll get back to worship together. But this is a way that we can all stay in touch and in contact. So please, if there's anything that anybody needs, let us know. Either let me know, call me personally, send me an email, get in contact with your deacon. Again, call the church, send the email into the pastors or info@olney@baptistchurch.com. Anything that we can do to be able to help you get along would be great. Other than that, bear in mind with this too, and I got to thinking about this at some point. For all we know, God may be testing us. We don't know exactly why everything's happened the way it has or what's caused it. But for all we know, God may be testing us. Maybe he's calling out Christians to find out just how strong we are in our faith, where we stand. So please be in prayer for everybody. Be in prayer for the church. Be in prayer for each other. Be in prayer for our government. Be in prayer for our leaders, our pastors, our leadership within the church. Each one of us can do our part, and let us be strong in everything that we do. Other than that, I think that pretty much comes to the end of the report that I have. I wish you all well, blessings, and we're here for you. Thank you very much. Jim, I think it's your turn next, right?
Got my own.
Oh, you have your own.
He also wanted to continue to pray for one another. All right, so for those who don't know me, I'm Jim Fry. I'm the head of the great group of guys who are the trustees of our church. So I wanted to go over some of the things that have been going on since March, I guess, March, April, and May. So some of the things that have been going on outside of the pandemic. First of all, we had in Olney, we had a high-speed chase that ended in Olney. It was some kind of bank robbery or something. There was money involved. I don't know. But it ended near the church, and the suspects ran to our campus, or they ran through the campus, possibly. So we had a lot of people in the church reach out to the trustees. Marlon and I got on the police scanners, and we were listening to it. Once things died down a little bit, we called 311, and they told us that we could go to the church and make sure it was safe. The original report was that they had gotten into the church, and the police had searched the church, and then there was a separate report saying there was gunshots into the church building. So Marlon and I came out late night, swept the whole building after the police said it was okay. Didn't find anything, no gunshot holes, no open windows, no open doors. As far as we could tell, no one had been inside. And then after the fact, when we left, Marlon and I talked to an officer in the parking lot, and he said that no one was inside. So who knows what's true, but building was safe. So that was good. Next, we extended the internet to the fellowship hall wing. So now we have wireless internet in the fellowship hall finally, and all the classrooms. So we're good to go in that. We also had our annual sprinkler system test and inspection. So we passed those, so we are safe. And then finally, after the building, after the campus was shut down for the COVID pandemic, we did have our cleaning crew do a deep clean of the building, which includes all the surfaces, all the floors, the baseboards, all the, just a more thorough cleaning they normally do. And then we are in the process now of removing a couple trees that have fallen over in the most recent storms. So now I want to talk to you about our streaming services. So the trustees are also involved in the AV ministry, or close enough. So the stages of our stream here at OBC. So we first started off going live from the fellowship hall. That lasted 1 week, and until we got the orders that we can't be, we have to socially distance and shelter at home. So then we went to 100% pre-recorded. So the pastor pre-recorded his message. Kyle and Kristen recorded the other messages. And that was going well. And then last week we started going live from pre-recording a couple elements and then going live with the message in here. Now that had some bumps, as most all of you probably saw last week, but hopefully we worked these out for this week. Anytime we go from one stage to another, we did have some speed bumps, so I think we're good now. Because of all this, we did have to purchase some new equipment, which were reflected in Dee's numbers. So we bought a high-end streaming computer. We'll get to that in a minute. We also bought some studio lights and some background lights. Those were purchased for when we were going to be in the fellowship hall. And so we're not using them in the sanctuary, but we are using them for other purposes, for other video productions, so that money's not going to waste. We also bought a new backdrop for the pastor's office. And then previously we were streaming in 720, and now we're streaming in full HD, which is 1080p. And that's what the new computer helps us with. So hopefully our quality of the service that we produce is at a high level. So streaming numbers, we average about 60 to 70 devices per Sunday. So a device is a phone or a TV or a tablet, anything you're watching it on. It doesn't necessarily reflect how many people are watching, because in my house we have one TV, showing the service, and there's 5 of us, 4 of us, I'm not there. But 60 to 70 devices is pretty high, so this is probably more than a normal Sunday service since we're now streaming. And then on a Wednesday night, we have about 25 to 35 devices, and again, it's hard to tell how many people that is. So the best place to find our stream is on our website, www.olneybaptistchurch.com/live. That's always the best place, because if a link ever changes last minute because of technical issues like last week, the website's the first place to get updated with the real link. So if it comes 11 o'clock and the service hasn't started yet and you don't see the countdown going, just hit refresh on your browser at olneybaptistchurch.com and you should have the most updated link. And of course, we always put our replays on Facebook and YouTube. So if you go to our YouTube channel, Olney Baptist Church, you'll see a tab for videos, which is every video that we upload. And then we have playlists, so we have the messages broken down into messages and praise team and choir and all that, so you can have your playlist, so you can hear some OBC music throughout the week. All right, so as far as sanitation goes, once the building reopens in any capacity, we will have the building deep cleaned before we reopen once again. And then we have bought 5 touchless automatic hand sanitizer stands to place around the building. These are like the doctor's office. You walk up to it, it disperses hand sanitizer into your hand. But the plan is to put those in the welcome area, in the fellowship hall, and in the sanctuary. But then we also bought individual hand sanitizer bottles to place in every single classroom, in the offices, and any other place that there are people. Now, whenever we do return, I foresee us wearing masks or being mandated to wear masks in the building. But we purchased some in case someone shows up to the church without one, we can give them one. And then we have gloves as well in case someone doesn't feel comfortable touching the services and wants to wear gloves. So with that said, I think I'm done. Yep. Pastor.
All right, Jim is running back to push play. Daniel, I want to thank him for his hard work and keeping us informed, and let's be in prayer for Daniel and his family. But Daniel's prepared a report for you all on just the COVID-19 situation overall. So Jim is going to play that for us, and then after that, we will get into what our reopening plans are for our campus. So go ahead, Jim.
Hey church, great to be with you tonight. I'm happy to talk with you a little bit about COVID-19, some of the things we've learned about it in the last few months, what the status is globally in our region, and also what this means for the church. Hey church, great to be with you tonight. There is quite a bit of misinformation out there, so please look at reputable sources, including the CDC, your state health department, and your county health department will have local information specific to your region. And a lot of the information here is pulled directly from either the CDC or the state health department. So these are some of the symptoms of COVID-19. I won't go through all of these in detail, but just to note, it's not just a respiratory illness, it's a systemic whole body illness, and so some of the symptoms reflect that. Again, all of these symptoms can be found on the CDC website. COVID transmission generally occurs between people who are in close contact with one another. It's usually through respiratory droplets produced when an infected person coughs, sneezes, or talks. Importantly, on this last point, COVID-19 is spread by people who are not showing symptoms. And what the viral load in the upper respiratory tract, or the density of the virus, is actually highest around the day people show symptoms. or even the day before, meaning that a lot of people transmit the virus without even knowing that they've been infected. Again, prevention, this has been consistent since the beginning. Maintain good social distance. Wash your hands often with soap and water. If you don't have soap and water, use hand sanitizer. And it's important to routinely clean and disinfect frequently touched surfaces. I won't go through this whole slide, but just to note, the risk groups are mainly in older people or people who live in nursing homes or long-term care facilities. However, there are a host of underlying medical conditions that put people at risk. In fact, something like 40 to 50% of Americans fall into one of these high-risk groups. And so it's really important to note that it's not just a disease for older people, it's a disease across all age groups. In fact, the bulk of hospitalizations in the US are among the younger people under 65. And so it's certainly a higher risk of severe illness in older individuals, but anyone can be at risk.
Just taking a look at the clinical picture of COVID-19, we see systemic involvement. It's not isolated to the lung. It certainly causes pneumonia, and this is a primary cause of morbidity and mortality. But we also see cardiac damage, coagulopathy. We see gastrointestinal involvement. We see reproductive system damage and involvement, especially in men. And we also see systemic inflammation and cytokine storm. This is where the body overreacts and your immune system starts to attack your own body. And so these are all factors that are now in play with COVID-19. In children, we initially thought children were largely spared from this, but we have now seen a new syndrome called the multi-system inflammatory syndrome that is quite dangerous in children. And so this is a new finding that's being further explored.
So as a global update of the status of COVID-19, this is the status as of May 26th. We have over 5.5 million cases confirmed, and we have close to 350,000 deaths globally. And in the US, we account for almost 100,000 of those deaths, so a large proportion of the global deaths are in the US. Just zooming on the US now, we see some of the hot spots. So we know New York was hit hard by the COVID-19. We see that Washington is on this outer fringe of this hotspot. There's some hotspots in the south as well, and unfortunately there's Native American and Navajo areas here that are being hard hit by COVID-19 as well. Zooming in on Montgomery County now, this is from the Montgomery County dashboard. We see the number of new confirmed cases over time. We see it's stabilized at around 200 new cases per day. And this is the dashboard tracking the number of COVID-19 deaths by day. We see hopefully it's stabilized and perhaps decreasing. But it's important to note that this is still, we're seeing between 10 to 15 deaths per day, and this is in our immediate neighborhood. This is our backyard, this is our neighbors, so still certainly numbers we don't want to be seeing.
Now just taking a quick look at what the future might hold. I'm going to share some information from this paper in Science that looks at some of the transmission of COVID that's projected in the next couple of years. And this slide just shows the epidemic curve in China. So what we see is within 4 weeks, they went from very few cases to the total number of ICU beds in all of America. And so letting it go, letting the virus go, is a bad option. We certainly do need some interventions in place to keep this in check. A really important factor for the transmission of COVID is seasonality. So this is data looking at human endemic coronaviruses, or the viruses that cause the common cold that are in the same family. And what we see is they peak in the winter months in the northern hemisphere, and they wane during the summers. We believe we will see some seasonality with SARS-CoV-2, but probably not to this degree because it is a new virus and fewer people are immune to it. And what we see here is that in these boxes, this represents interventions such as social distancing. And in the different color curves, it represents how effective those interventions are. If I just use the green line and say social distancing and stay-at-home orders are very effective, what we see is we suppress the peak during the end of the winter into the spring, but actually it's worse off in the long run because a lot more people are susceptible to the virus during the winter when it'll come back during its high season. And following from that, what they think we'll need is intermittent or rolling shutdowns and interventions over time. And so, for example, what this shows is the initial stay-at-home order followed by probably one sometime during the summer, and then more regular ones as we enter the high season for coronavirus. Of course, this will be driven locally, most likely, as we see outbreaks and implement interventions as needed.
Now, just to wrap up, I'm going to talk a little bit about COVID-19 and the church.
And unfortunately, churches are identified as locations with high-risk exposures. This is just one example of a church in Arkansas that had 2 symptomatic people attend the church event for children, and 35 of the 92 attendees acquired COVID-19, including 3 deaths. It's important to note that about half of them actually refused testing as well, or were not tested. So this represents a very high proportion of people who were infected. And this spread furthermore into the community with 26 additional cases and 1 death in the community stemming from this.
Just one other example. This was a choir in Washington State early on in the course of the pandemic. There was 1 symptomatic person who attended a rehearsal, and afterwards 87% of the group developed COVID-19. What this, in conjunction with other evidence, suggests is that singing is actually very effective at aerosolizing the virus. And so the CDC has released some interim guidance for communities of faith. This is available on the CDC website and something that we're reviewing as a church. Some of the recommendations from that report are, again, prevention hygiene routines, so hand washing, hand sanitizer, coughing and sneezing into your elbow, face coverings, social distancing, and encouraging symptomatic congregants to stay home. Don't tough it out in this case. Please stay home. Also, there's recommendations with regards to facilities, such as cleaning, just putting away things that aren't cleaned easily, taking into account ventilation, and ways to separate people who appear symptomatic. And I just want to close with this thought, that the church is the body of Christ. We're called to gather, but gathering does not necessarily mean in person. We can do a lot of what the church is called to do through online platforms, through the phone. We have a lot of ways of carrying out the responsibility of the church. And I think one of those is spreading the joy, the peace, and the hope we have in Christ, spreading the gospel, the good news. And it's in the midst of the darkness, in the sadness, despair that we have now, that we have a really unique opportunity to do that even more effectively. And so even this study that was released a couple of weeks ago was showing that there's a much lower hazard of death from despair among people who attend religious services compared to those who don't. And so I think this just goes to point out the importance of the church and what we do. We're not limited to doing church in a building. The church isn't a building, it's the people. We all know that. But to actually act that out, to do that. And I think even speaking from the music side of things, there's a lot of things that I think God can do through this. Through most of church history, we had the Psalms, but music as we know it kind of in the U.S. and a lot of churches in the world has, I think, become kind of idolized. And so to pull back and say, you know, what is the essential function of music in glorifying God? How are we able to do this? I think are really important questions that we can ask during this time and still effectively be the church and glorify God through all of this. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Daniel, for that presentation. We appreciate very much all that you're doing. Continue to pray for Daniel. Daniel is, I believe, live on the chat right now, so if you have questions about his report specifically, feel free to chat those questions, and he can respond in the chat. But other questions, hold them until the end, and I'll be responding to chat questions at the end of this presentation. So now we're going to get into what our campus reopening plans are at this time and how we're developing other plans moving forward. So this is the key part, really the key part of the meeting that a lot of you are tuning in for. Please bear with me because it's important that we go through this. Now, I want to say there are a lot, in case you haven't noticed on social media, there are a lot of opinions out there and a lot of opinions even in our own church family on how the government's handling this or how they should handle this or what the coronavirus is, and just tons and tons of opinions. And so much so that I saw this and I couldn't agree more. A lot of people really don't want to hear your opinion. They want to hear their opinion coming out of your mouth. And so I hope that none of us here watching tonight are in that mindset. We all need to humble ourselves in the sight of the Lord, as the Bible talks about humility over and over again. And part of humility is setting our own opinions aside and really listening and understanding. And so that's what this is about. Now, if you all, those of you in school, if you had math teachers that would always say, show your work. When I was a kid, I would be annoyed by that because I'm like, isn't the fact that I have the right answer good enough? Why do you have to see all my work? You know, but it is important, and particularly when it comes to the decisions that the leadership has made in our church, I want to show the work here a little bit. I want to show what's been driving the decision-making process. So I'm asking you to please be patient and bear with me as I explain and lay out exactly what's driving our decision-making process as we go through this together. So some key scriptures that I believe should guide us, and these are key scriptures that have been guiding me specifically on this coronavirus situation, is number one, Proverbs chapter 9 and verse 10 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding." Now, when it comes to news and crises and challenges that we face, we often will run to different sources for information, not only sources for particular news items, but sources for how to process the news. So it might be running to a particular news channel on TV or cable TV. It might be running to a particular internet site, or going and checking social media to see who's tweeting what or whatnot. But when it comes to what thought leaders that we go to and who our go-to sources are for wisdom and for knowledge and so forth, shouldn't we start with God? I mean, aren't we as Christians supposed to start with what God wants and what God says? And this is why the Bible is very clear that, you know, not only the beginning of wisdom, but the beginning of knowledge itself starts with the fear of the Lord. And we all need to have a healthy, reverential awe and fear of God in order for us to understand what he wants. This is God's church, and we need to do things God's way and make sure that we're seeking his face. And that means all of us need to be on our knees in prayer before God, seeking his face for his church and for one another. And so I want to be guided by what God wants. And so I look to God's word, you know, in addition to praying, I look to God's word to see what God has to say. And here's some key principles in God's word. We are supposed to be driven by love. You know, everything that we do, whether we're in a pandemic or not, whether our campus is closed or not, whatever, everything that we do is supposed to be driven by love for God and love for others. And there are so many verses on that I hardly know where to start, but I would say lovingly and humbly to you, you may have strong political opinions or strong opinions about how churches should do things, how the government should handle things, you know, things like that. But if your opinions aren't grounded in love, then 1 Corinthians 13 makes it clear that if we don't have love in our heart, then it profits us nothing. It values us nothing. Everything must be grounded and driven by love in God's eyes. And we should listen and understand more than we speak. You know, there's a lot of opinions flying around out there, including in churches. And a lot of churches right now are dealing with angry divisions. And I want to be honest with you, some of my colleagues in pastoral ministry aren't helping matters. You know, when I look and see what some pastors are saying on social media and on video and stuff, and I cringe because some pastors aren't helping, but we really ought to be doing more listening and understanding and more loving and be more humble than we are just trying to proclaim our opinions and get people to conform to us, you know. And so I personally want to know what the experts are saying. You know, the Bible says there's safety in the multitude of counselors. I want to know what the experts are saying, and thank God we've got someone like Daniel in our church who's an epidemiologist who can help guide us on this. But not just Daniel, we got a lot of people in our church with a lot of experience in healthcare that are working actively in healthcare right now. We'd be foolish not to consult with them and hear what they have to say. So we need to listen and learn. Proverbs 18:13, by the way, says, "He who answers a matter before he hears it, it is folly and shame." That means if you jump to a conclusion without getting all the facts first, it's shameful. That's what the Bible teaches. We should pray for and cooperate with our civil authorities. Now, this is a tough one because I know a lot of people have strong political opinions, but guess what? Jesus, Paul, and Peter all tell us that we should cooperate with Caesar. Jesus tells us we should give to Caesar what is Caesar's. Peter says we should submit ourselves to every ordinance of man. Paul says we should submit to the higher powers. These are clear scriptural guidelines, and they were writing this and saying these things in the context of the Roman Empire. And I hear a lot of Christians in America saying, well, they didn't understand our political situation. There's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of conspiracies. There's a lot of problems. Okay, are you going to tell me that there weren't corruptions and conspiracies and sin and problems in the Roman government, at the time in the Roman Empire? So if Paul, Peter, and Jesus dealing with guys like Tiberius and Caligula and Nero and Roman emperors like that, if they can, and Pontius Pilate as the governor of Judea, if they can be dealing with officials like that and be saying, hey, to the extent that you can, you need to follow the government, cooperate with the government, pray for the government, then certainly we can do that in the United States of America. Certainly we can do that with Montgomery County and with the state of Maryland. And so we need to be cooperating with the civil authorities and listening to them. Now, I want to be clear. If the government comes to me and says, stop preaching Jesus, I'll fight the government, okay? Because I believe in the book of Acts, better to obey God rather than man. So if the government tells me I've got to violate my statement of faith or violate my principles, then I'll be like a Daniel and fight the government or disobey. But that is not the case when the government's trying to keep us safe from a global pandemic. And so we need to pick our battles here. And I don't have any intention of battling Montgomery County right now. We need to work with Montgomery County, work with the state of Maryland, and work with our local authorities. And I think I'm standing on solid scriptural ground to say that. Here is another passage that needs to guide us, because once we're given the green light by Montgomery County to reopen, we then have to make the decision on what's best for Olney Baptist Church. And this passage, and hopefully you're familiar with this by now because Pastor Kurt's been just taught on it tonight. Pastor Kurt's been teaching on Philippians 2. Pastor Kyle, who's sitting here tonight, preached on this a couple weeks ago. And Philippians 2 makes it clear, and let nothing, that doesn't mean a few things, that's nothing. Nothing should be done through selfish ambition. And selfish ambition doesn't just mean wanting to make a lot of money or have a lot of power or whatnot. It means trying to get things done your way, having your agenda advanced. Nothing should be done by selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, that's humility, let each esteem, that's value, others better than himself. Let each of you look out not only for his own interests, but also for the interest of others. So I can't make decisions for Olney Baptist Church based on what I want. I have to be cognizant and thinking about everybody else. And let me just be honest with you as a person. I miss you all. I miss fellowshipping. I get emotional right now thinking about this. I miss seeing you all throughout the week. I actually like you all. I actually like interacting with you all, And I love being in person. I love walking up and down the halls, on a Sunday morning before or after the service and shaking hands and talking to people and fellowship. And I love the fellowship in the parking lot. I love the fellowship at the Wednesday night. I love actually, here's one. I like actually preaching to people instead of preaching to a camera. And I know there's people watching on camera, but it's awkward to talk to a little dot or a little camera. I actually like talking to people. I like interacting with people. I like hearing people. So from my personal taste, if it was just up to me and it was all about what I want, then we would have crab legs every service. It'd be, well, maybe just during the week when the staff's here. But we'd have all-you-can-eat crab legs and all that. But Coca-Cola plenty, and we'd have people not in prison. Sorry, people present. And that's what I want. But I have to look out for the interests of others. And so I've got to look out for that. And our church is a diverse church, and thank God for that, and praise God for that. But among our diversities, we are a generationally diverse church. We've got a lot of people who are older and a lot of people who have health concerns and health issues. And so when I think about the flock at Olney Baptist Church that I'm charged biblically to oversee and look after, I think about everyone that's older and people that are in the at-risk categories, you know, for COVID-19, who are particularly vulnerable for that. And I'll be honest, I don't want to do anything that's going to put them in unnecessary risk. And so these things need to be guiding us and how we move forward. We also need to be mindful of this verse, and Ron mentioned this, really getting into this in his deacon's report. We need to bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. I do find that a lot of churches fall into the mix of thinking that everything is centered around getting together on Sunday morning or getting together Wednesday night for those that really want to go the extra mile or whatever, and that church is around the building, and that church centers around whatever the pastors do and the deacons or the staff or whatever. And it's like, and people get into kind of this customer service mindset, and that's not the case. The church is the church. And I want to say again, this building is not Olney Baptist Church. This is a building that's owned by Olney Baptist Church that we've dedicated for the use of Olney Baptist Church to the glory of God. But the church is you all. You're the church, and the church has never closed. The church is still in operation. The church is still going, but the church only works when we care for one another, love one another, encourage one another, and do things as a church family throughout the week, not just on Sunday and Wednesday. And so I encourage you to be bearing one another's burdens during this time. These are things that should guide us. So OBC, moving forward, we will cooperate with national, state, and local authorities. That's a decision that I'm pretty firm on. We're not going to battle the government right now. We're not going to be one of these churches in the news that's fighting the government. And I'm not saying by that, you know, when you look around the country, there are some situations where I think the government could be definitely handling things better. But here in Montgomery County and in the state of Maryland, we are going to work and cooperate with our local authorities and state authorities. And so our emphasis right now is going to be on connect groups, deacon care, online ministry, including but not limited to our services, and members being the church and serving each other. That's going to be our emphasis, because right now Montgomery County has not given the green light. The rest of the state of Maryland, and hopefully you all are familiar with Maryland's multi-phase reopening plan. Hopefully you've read that. Hopefully you're familiar with it. If you're not, you need to look at that as soon as this meeting is over. But most of Maryland is under phase 1 of Governor Hogan's plan, recovery plan. And under phase 1, people are allowed to, they're advised to stay at home, but they're allowed to leave their homes. And churches in particular, there's some restrictions being eased on businesses and so forth. And churches in particular are allowed to meet, if necessary, at 50% building capacity. But there has to be a bunch of social distancing and physical distancing guidelines met. And then there's required guidelines and recommended guidelines on that. That's for most of Maryland right now, but not Montgomery County. Montgomery County hasn't even gone to phase 1 yet. So until Montgomery County goes to phase 1, we have no option. We have to continue as we are online. But I'll get to even when they do go to phase 1 in a second. By the way, just as a quick side note, maybe some of you are wondering, well, who's making these decisions and how is this being made and things like that? Aren't we congregational governed and so on and so forth? Well, we are always available for questions and concerns. I want you to know that. So if you have any kind of question or concern, please reach out to me, pastor@olneybaptistchurch.com. Reach out to Pastor Kyle. Reach out to the different ministry leaders and stuff. We're always available to answer your questions. I want you to be aware of that. And we hope, as I mentioned earlier, to resume business meetings soon, because ultimately that's really where the congregation is able to speak with a corporate voice, is at our business meetings. And right now we're not able to have those business meetings. So hopefully soon we can be resuming that. But for right now, you know, in between business meetings, the decisions are being made by the various ministry areas and the staff, you know, just depending on what the situation is. So personnel matters, personnel committee; financial matters, stewardship committee; benevolence and congregational care matters, deacons; and then assisted by the elders right now. In a coordinating council oversees the church calendar and activities. There aren't a lot of activities we can do, you know, at the building right now or in person right now. And so you know, trustees handle the building and the grounds and so forth. And so it just depends on the different area that we're talking about. For the campus right now in this COVID-19 situation, when it comes to when we reopen, how we reopen, and things like that, the decision really rests with myself and the trustees. So just keep that in mind. We are certainly seeking input and stuff from other sources, but that's where the decisions rest right now. So when can we get back together? There's a few things to keep in mind when we gather back together in person, okay? Number one, we will continue to comply with required and, to the best of our ability, recommended guidelines from national, state, and local authorities. And again, I just want to say, you know, for the safety and welfare of our members, we need to do this, okay? And in honor of the scriptures, we need to do this. And so I hope you're all with me on that, okay? We need to comply with the governmental guidelines, both required and recommended. And that means social and physical distancing. You know, so we get back together, it's not going to be like it has been. We're going to have to be distanced apart, you know, social and physical distancing. We will not be allowed to do any handshaking or any hugs. And that's hard for a lot of people, I know, but, and I love to shake hands and stuff like that, you know, but not going to be able to do any handshaking or hugs, you know, for the time being. We will have limited size gatherings, you know, so if we have to if we meet indoors, it would be limited in the number of people that can be in this auditorium. And because we have to, it's not just 50% building capacity and that's it. It's 50% building capacity while also meeting the social and physical distancing guidelines. So we have to look at the auditorium and look at the social distancing guidelines that work for this auditorium and decide based on that how many people reasonably can we have in the auditorium at one time. And so when you calculate that, we could be looking at very limited gatherings of, you know, 30 to 50, maybe 60 at most people spread out throughout the auditorium. So we're talking limited gatherings, and so maybe then multiple services, you know, not just two, but more than that perhaps, and people would have to register and sign up for that sort of thing. So there's a lot of logistics, a lot of planning and logistics that would have to go into that, to having indoor gatherings. And the state, by the way, is strongly encouraging churches to pursue outdoor gatherings if we're going to do that. There would also have to be multiple, like I said, Sunday morning gatherings, and no, there's a hard one. This is a hard one for me. No singing at all. You know, we wouldn't be able to sing. Not as a congregation. We wouldn't be able to have the choir. We wouldn't be able to sing, you know, as a church. And that's tough, you know. And then we have to be cleaning and sanitizing the building after every service. After every single service, a thorough cleaning and sanitizing everything. And by the way, even tonight we've been sanitizing the microphone and sanitizing, you know, the clicker and stuff like that. I got a big thing of sanitizer right down there. So, you know, these are kind of things we have to look after. And every time there's an event on campus, there has to be sanitizations, right? So going on and cleaning going on for that. And I'm going to tell you, that's a lot of work. And when you have a limited-sized church, a smaller church, and you got to decide where do you want the resources of your church directed. Do we want to be paying extra money for cleaning crews or recruiting more volunteers or tasking staff members away from their current responsibilities and having them clean and wipe things down, everything after every single service and every single event? And with the reality that we're not even going to be able to sing and we're going to be social distance and all of this. And so when you look at it right now, if we were to get back together even during phase one, when Montgomery County goes to phase one, we're looking at all of this, all of that. And I just want to ask you to let that sink in. Let that sink in, okay? So what that means, OBC moving forward, is our campus will remain closed for now. And even when Montgomery County green lights and goes to phase one like the rest of the state of Maryland, we are still going to keep our campus closed. All right, and you know, because in my estimation, and the leaders thus far have backed me on this and supported me on this, the other leaders, it's just not worth the time and expense and the risk to the health and safety of our members to try to do indoor services even under phase one of the Maryland Recovery Plan. And again, I want to stress, Montgomery County isn't even at phase one yet. So we're looking at keeping the campus closed for some time at this point. And no children's activities or children's areas, really, for kids to play in until Montgomery County Public Schools reopen their campus. And right now, we don't even know if that's going to happen in the fall. Montgomery County schools don't know if they're going to reopen in the fall. There's just a lot of unknowns. But you know, so we're not even going to attempt children's activities. So when we do go back to having gatherings here in the campus, and MCPS has not reopened yet, we're looking at family services where kids stay with their parents and so forth. And there will be no Wednesday night activities until Montgomery County Public Schools reopen their campus. So, and at that point, we'll be able to make our own decision that's best for our church. But no Wednesday night activities. So what we're talking about for when it comes to opening our campus, we're focused on the connect groups using our campus, and we're focused on Sunday morning worship. So hope that all makes sense. Campus closed, no children's activities for now, no Wednesday night activities for the foreseeable future until MCPS reopens. Once Montgomery County goes to phase 1, Pastor Kyle and I will be available for scheduled appointments with members on church campus. So we don't want to bring any germs into your house. So we want to be mindful of that. And guidelines right now, they're recommending that pastors don't do any visits except for emergency situations. But even in phase 1, we don't want to bring any germs your way. But we will be happy, and I mean this, happy to meet with any of you that want to come to the church campus and meet with us. This is during phase 1 now. We will be happy to open up certain sections of the building for those meetings. But you just need to call and schedule those meetings or email us and schedule those meetings. And we are also looking at purchasing a tent for small gatherings outdoors. So like if some connect groups want to meet on campus, we would prefer not to open the building during phase 1, but we can talk to them about having like an outdoor type connect group gathering on this campus and the tent overhang. So we're looking into purchasing that. So we'll let you know more about that. Jim and Daniel are going to co-chair a campus health and safety working group. That's the name I came up with, but they can change it if they don't like that name, something cool or whatever. And they're going to develop plans for phases 2 and 3. Again, right now, Maryland's under phase 1. Montgomery County is still at phase 0. They're not even at phase 1 yet. So I've just given you the plan for phase 1 for OBC, but we still need a plan for phase 2 and phase 3 for OBC. And there's just so many unknowns looking out further than phase 1. So Jim and Daniel are going to co-chair a group. We are asking, and you can email them if you are willing to serve on this group. We are asking for people with healthcare experience, nurses, for example, to serve on this task group because we want to make sure that we take the CDC guidelines and the Maryland Health Department guidelines and apply them to our church campus in a way that's mindful of the safety and health of all of our members. So we need people with healthcare experience to work on this, okay? So let Jim or Daniel know if you're in healthcare and you would like to help with this, let them know. And then once those plans will be developed, and then the trustees and I will look those plans over, and once we approve them, we'll disseminate those plans to the congregation. Kristen is going to do like a cool graphic and stuff, so it'll be nice and easy for everyone to understand what we're looking at for the rest of this year and how we reopen. I do want to let you know that there's a lot of speculation. Daniel alluded to this, but a lot of speculation in the healthcare community and the scientific community that we may be looking at another wave of this hitting later in the year. And we could be right back at square one if that happens. So please be in prayer about that, and please be mindful about that. But if all goes well, and if there isn't that second wave, and if we are able to continue to move forward, then this working group will develop plans for phases 2 and 3. But for phase 1, again, we're going to keep the campus closed. So bottom line, church building stays closed until we're ready to reopen in a manner that's mindful of the health and safety of all of our members. And emphasis right now is on connect groups, congregational care managed by the deacons with support from the elders. And of course, we're asking members just to be members, as Ron said in his report, just be looking on each other, as Galatians 6 tells us to, and online ministry. When I say online ministry, it's not just the services. We certainly want to emphasize that. That's most important. But I've also am going to be doing devotionals and things like that throughout the week. We're going to try to do online stuff throughout the week to kind of help engage those who are interested. So Jane and I do the Facebook Lives. Jane's been doing most of them recently, but I'll be on with her tomorrow. The Facebook Lives Tuesday and Thursday at 1 o'clock, and we do that just to kind of provide some engagement with our members and our church family during the week. So hop on Facebook, our Facebook page for that. But again, and I'll be doing some devotionals and things like that too. So again, this is going to be our emphasis right now. That's the season that we're in right now. I want to assure you, though, no matter what our frustrations, anxieties, or difficulties, God is still in control. God is not, dead. He's not gone. He's not missing in action, and the angels are not on strike. God is still in control, and the church is still on mission. We are still in the mission of bringing hope and healing to hearts and homes. In fact, I would argue that we are effectively reaching more people online now than we were before. There are more people watching and hearing the gospel of Jesus Christ online each Sunday than ever before in American history. And I know I've heard from people who watch our services that never have come to our church, but they watch our services. So, you know, we can continue to bring hope and healing to hearts and homes even now. We're still on mission, and the church isn't a building, it's you. And so the health of Olney Baptist Church, the spiritual health of Olney Baptist Church, depends on you. And so, with that, I want to now open it up for questions. And so feel free to make any questions or comments in the chat, and I will do my best to respond to those questions. So I am standing by for people to say something. And Kyle, if you want to sanitize this mic, you can say something if you want as people are typing questions. Okay, Kyle's getting another option here. So, all right, Kyle's bringing a different mic, a cleaner mic. He thinks I got cooties. So, all right. So Kyle's going to say a few words again. If you have any questions or comments or anything, please type them in the chat. I am seeing the chat live. So Kyle, it's all yours.
I don't think he has cooties. I know he has cooties. So for the children's ministry, we have been doing sending take-home lessons to Awana parents each week. We'll do that throughout the remainder of the school year for the next 2 or 3 weeks. When that is done, so there's really nothing going on when it comes to events for children. So because of that, I'll just letting you know. When it comes to children's ministry efforts, that effort will go towards the children's messages that you've been seeing on Sunday mornings, and we're going to try to do a little bit more with that throughout the week. We have a reopening checklist, which is just a bunch of things. Toys to get rid of, how to sanitize everything, also maybe some painting, some children's ministry areas, stuff like that. So when it comes to efforts, we'll be doing those children's messages and doing more with those, reopening checklist. And we are going to try to start a parent resource page on our website. So that's all of our efforts are going to be going towards that. God bless you all.
Okay, I don't see hers yet, so. Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you, Joan. We are actually working on updating our Connect group. We've got to replace one of our leaders that left, and so we're working on that, and we have to basically are making some changes to the Connect group roster, but Kyle is the main contact right now, so if anyone has a question about what Connect groups are available, contact Pastor Kyle, youth pastor at olneybaptistchurch.com, and he can tell you what's available. But as we are going to be disseminating a sheet to everyone that has the information, but it's in the process of being updated right now. So. Okay, and I see Kristen providing a link right now, so thank you. Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? I feel like I should hum Jeopardy music or something right now, but I don't want to. I can't sing. I'm not allowed to sing. So you don't want me to sing anyway. So, all right. Well, continue. If you have any questions or comments, please. And if you have any questions or comments that you want to send me privately, feel free to do that. So I see, I got mail today from the Jehovah's Witnesses that they are, okay. Okay, so, yes, I mean, if you have any suggestions on how we can do that in a more systematic way, Karen, we're open to that. I would encourage everyone to pray. I just, as you know, and you were one of the ones that responded, Karen, I just took a 2-week prayer retreat, basically, really focused on prayer and spiritual renewal, and I invited members of the church to join me in prayer for our church and our community, so we hopefully did that, but I appreciate those. But if we want to send out a flyer or a postcard or something, yeah, we can definitely talk about doing that. Yeah. Definitely through social media, that will be done, definitely. As far as mailing it, there's a lot of costs in a direct mail piece. We'll have to work with the stewardship committee on that, and we've already invested a lot of stuff, money in online ministry, but definitely social media, we can do something on that, Karen. Thank you for that suggestion. Any other comments or questions or anything? All right, I don't want to waste anyone's time or draw this meeting out. So if you have any questions that you want to, or comments you want to send to me personally, pastor@olneybaptistchurch.com. I check my email several times a day, unless I've got like meetings all day, but I do my best to check it several times a day, so please, that's the best way to reach me. All right, and I want to thank those that are here tonight live, Kyle, the Barnetts, and Jim, for making this meeting possible. I also want to thank, just a special thanks to our AV team for all the hard work they're doing in making this stuff possible to broadcast online. So I hope you will join us Sunday morning for our online service, and we look forward to being with you together. So I see one other, crab. Yeah, I'm missing those crab legs. Yeah. All right, well, we love you all. God bless you, and let me close this out in a word of prayer. Father, I thank you so much for all that you've done for us. I thank you for this wonderful church. I pray that you will just help us to continue to look on one another and care for one another and pray for one another. And I pray that you'll be with all the needs in our church family right now. And I pray that you will just continue to guide us as we do your business and do your work. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I hope to see you tomorrow, Facebook Live, 1 o'clock with Jane and me, and then on service on Sunday. So God bless you. Have a good night.